So first of all, guys, thank you so much for being here. I am such a big fan of this book, not only as a fan of Marvel and Black Panther, but more importantly, as a dad to a little girl who I think is going to take a lot of inspiration from the story that you're telling. But before we talk about the book, I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about the film Black Panther, the film from which the world of this book comes. That's a film that plays on multiple levels. Obviously, it is a film that delivers everything we want from a big popcorn Marvel Cinematic Universe film, but it's also a landmark film in terms of representation, both in front of and behind the camera. I'd love to hear from each of you what that film and the world's embrace of that film has meant to you.
There was this big, surprise that, on the movie posters, like this giant, huge blockbuster, and there's all these black people on it, and there's like, this is an all-black cast. Like, I think it took a while for that to, even happen, but it was a beautiful thing when it did happen. And it was just one of those things where everybody felt like, I have to go to Wakanda. Like, I have to go to this place. I have to travel to this place. Not that I have to go see this film, but I need to go visit Wakanda. And it was just a monumental moment, really. And I just remember everybody being decked out and, going to a celebration, and honestly, it felt like heaven. It was beautiful.
I think that Black Panther 1 felt like possibility, right? It felt like the things that childhood me and childhood Nikkolas and all these children have been waiting for, like the possibility that we've been yearning for. As Nikkolas said, you have a poster with 10 black people, and I had never seen that before, especially not for a blockbuster film, but then, to have children showing up to that film who look nothing like the people in the poster but dressed as them, right? I didn't know it was possible for young white kids, Asian kids, Latinx kids to dress as a black superhero, right? It wasn't just a celebration of a superhero film or a celebration of a Marvel film. It was a celebration of blackness. And maybe for the first time in my life, I had seen people who weren't black collectively celebrating black people.
I believe you dedicated the book to all children who feel like the world doesn't see them. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little more about the inspiration behind the story in this book.
I think that for me, the inspiration of creating this story and Asada, the character, was me asking myself, if given this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to write for something so brilliant and beloved as Black Panther, who do you want to know that you love them, right? Because that's what Black Panther 1 did for me. Ryan Coogler, in many ways, wrote a love letter to 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old me and said, who are you writing your love letter to, right? Who do you want to feel the exact same way? And I said, I want especially young disabled children to feel that way, right? I want any child who feels like they might be different in some capacity to feel that way, and thus the story was born.
I want to talk about your joy as an artist and working on a project like this. I have to imagine that when you work in concept art, whether that is for a film or as a Disney Imagineer, the vast majority of concept art you come up with doesn't end up being reflected in a film or a theme park. So given this opportunity to tap into this world that you've probably dreamed up long ago, how much fun was that to explore?
The majority of it ends up in the trash can. And that's just part of concept art. Like, I'm just gonna come up with a million ideas, and one or two of these is gonna stick, many years of creating concepts, especially for Wakanda, just out of my own passion, wanting to, when I was at Imagineering, like, I want to be on the team that develops some Marvel ideas, and just creating whatever came to my mind. But then also working on Wakanda Forever, the film, so many ideas there that we're trying to get the look and the feel right on all of these different areas. But then to be able to take all of that and say, there's this amazing story that Fred created. How can I visualize that in a way that folks young and old can really grasp. So I had a lot of designs already, and I just really poured it all into, you know, page by page, different parts that you might not typically see in the film.
Fred, as a writer, I'm curious about the pride you feel given your relationships within your own family. So as a writer myself, my dad dreamed of being a writer, and his parents told him that was not a worthy career. So he spent his life as an accountant. Lived a good life. I lost my dad recently, and it made me very proud that he lived long enough to see me living out the dream that he wasn't able to achieve. I believe that your grandmother wanted to be a published author and wasn't able to pursue that dream due to the barrier she faced as a black woman in mid-20th century America. Given that you're now a New York Times best-selling author, what does that mean to you to carry out the dream that she wasn't able to achieve?
Well, you all have an investment in me crying today. It's hard to put into words, right? And I know you feel similarly with your father. My grandmother never got to see me become who I am today, but in many ways, I also feel like she's here with me, right? There's so much of her even in Asada, and there's so much of her in every single line that I put a period after, right? Like, whenever I finish a project, I ask myself, did I accomplish in this project what my grandmother was trying to accomplish, not just in her writing, but in the world, right? She was the type of woman who, if she had $1, you had 75 cents if you needed it. You know, we lived in poverty, and she made sure that every single neighbor who needed food, toiletries, anything, had that. And that access, the resources she gave to other people's happiness and hope, I've tried to embody that in my words, and I hope that I have.
Yeah. You use the word accomplish, and there's so many ways for a creator to measure his or her accomplishments or success. I'd love to hear from each of you what the ultimate measure of success would be for this book.
For me, I already know that it is successful in one way. A couple months ago, I got an email from a mom who has a child with disability, and she just put it out there like, I love your artwork, and I want to know if you're gonna ever, you know, tell some stories, maybe in a book or something that centers around a child with a disability. Had no idea that this book was coming out, and I think about parents like that who are right now able to hold this book in their hands, and I think that is a success already, and that because I know there's plenty of parents out there who they just need more content like this.
Black Panther has become synonymous with creating access, right? Creating access and inclusion for various communities, for various identities, and things of that nature. And I hold this book to that standard, right? How is this book creating access, and how is this book being a resource to help people feel seen in that way? And then I think outside of that, how does this book help us celebrate how we're unalike, right? You know, I remember there was these signs when I was growing up, and, you know, had various religions and identities on it. It said tolerate or tolerance or something like that. And I always questioned that. I said, well, why are we just tolerating each other instead of celebrating one another? And so I think that my entire career and Nikkolas's career is a testament to trying to celebrate each other. So if this book even helps one child on a playground, one child, you know, in a doctor's office or in a movie theater or anything, like, celebrate people who look nothing like them, who exist with identities that are nothing like theirs, then I think this book was a massive success.
Yeah. And at its core, this is a story that is certainly universally relatable. It's a story about a kid with dreams that seem impossible, a kid surrounded by people who tell her that maybe she should come up with a smaller dream and pursue an easier path. I think we can all relate to that at some point in our lives. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear from each of you. What's the best advice you would share with someone who has a dream that may seem impossible?
My best advice would be to take whatever that obstacle is that's in your way, whatever that giant thing may be that you think is immovable, and find the solution within that. Turn that thing into the vibranium-infused rocket ship and let it take it to your destiny. That's what Asada does, and I think that there's always that solution is somewhere within that problem. Maybe it's the thing that frustrates you, the thing that you think you don't want to touch, or you can't figure this problem out, but the answer is in there somewhere.
The idea of can't is only defined by the person in the mirror, right? I remember finding out that I had multiple sclerosis. I was 24 years old, and everyone had different things that I would no longer be able to do, the things that I can't do any longer. And my mother said that to me. She said, you look in the mirror. Whenever someone tells you that you can't, the one person who defines that is you in that mirror. And I would give that advice to everyone, right? Regardless of what your obstacle is, whether it is a hill or a mountain, you can climb it so long as you know you can climb it.